So we're going to go through and show what we need to do once we find the fitting that has failed after our test. And in this case, we've got a rubber boot that is studded. We've got 2 clamps on there, so what we need to do is remove the existing configuration. So we'll take off all the clamps. We'll get those off. And next, we're going to remove all of the nuts. So make sure you use the proper tools. And now, with all of the nuts removed, we're going to remove the existing ring. So we've now removed the clamps. Now we need to remove the ring. And now we have everything removed. So now that we're on a fiberglass sump and we have fiberglass pipe, we're going to use the Retrofit S fitting. We need to make sure we remove the studs. So you can do that however your company allows, the safest way possible. You can cut them off if that's what your company allows, or you can break them off or try to hammer them back into the backfill. All right, so this is your retrofit kit for fiberglass pipe and fiberglass sumps. It's the RF2001U, and this was meant as the U means that it's universal for round or flat sumps. So what we have in the kit is the fitting itself with the worm gear clamp. We also have the round sump adapter, so that makes it the universal. And then we have the sandpaper. So that's what you have in this kit. All right, so the next step is that we have to sand the pipe and we have to sand the wall that we're going to bond to. So we have the sandpaper in the kit. You could use any other type of device that's allowed by your company and is safe in the environment. We're just going to show you the manual way at this point. And this is why we want to make sure we get the studs out of there so we don't have to sand in between them. So if this were a gel-coated sump, we want to make sure we get down to bare fiberglass. Since this is a Bravo sump, the only thing we have to do is just get the shiny surface off. That gives us a really good bonding surface. Next step is you can take your emery cloth, and now we're going to prep the pipe. Okay, now you can see how we've gotten the glossy surface off and we're down to the bare fiberglass, and that's what we want to see. So now that we've got it prepped, now we need to also sand the fitting. All right, so now we're going to just do a light sanding on this, and we're going to get all of the flat surfaces, the inside, and the seam. Okay, now the next step is we need to clean everything up with acetone. The acetone gives us a really good clean surface to bond to. We'll take our fitting that we just sanded, and we're going to do that as well. Make sure all of those surfaces get cleaned up. Make sure you do both halves. And everywhere that we come in contact with the epoxy is what we want to make sure is good and clean. So now that we have them cleaned, make sure you keep them off the ground. If you need to keep the surfaces together, you can do it like that, but make sure you don't put them back on the ground. So the next step is that we have to make sure we get our retrofit epoxy. You want to make sure it's the EP100RF with the orange label. That's our retrofit epoxy. Now, if it is cold outside, make sure you follow the cold weather instructions to heat up just the base. This is our hardener, okay? So both of these have a batch date on them. Right here is the batch date, and those are good for 12 months if they're stored in temperature controlled environment like a warehouse. If you have them outside in your truck and the temperatures are well over 100, you're going to reduce that by quite a bit. And we have our cure times. So this shows you at what temperature, how long it's going to take for that epoxy to cure and what your working time is. Shows you right here. So one of the first steps we like to do is just make sure that your base is off of the sides, and you can mix this up just a little bit with your stir stick. And so this is what it's going to look like. Then our next step is to make sure that we shake up the hardener. Now it has a yellow tint to it, and that yellow tint sometimes could be light. It may not have a whole lot in there. It does not change the property of that hardener at all. So you want to just make sure you shake it up. And so that shows you your hardener. And make sure you shake it up before you use it. Our next step is to pour the hardener in. And then we're going to mix it up. We've got two ways that we can do this. We can do it with the stir stick, but we have another way that I want to show you that uses basic old beaters from your little hand mixer, and then you can attach that to the drill, and it makes this much easier to mix up. All right, so here is the drill that we're going to use along with the beater to mix this up. Now we just start with a real slow to get it started so we don't splash all that hardener everywhere. And so that's what it looks like when it's all mixed up. You got a really good smooth yellow consistency. Then what we do is take the stir stick, and I like to just scrape it out and then pull it out to take a look to make sure it's all good and we have consistent. So you can see there it's not consistent, so we're going to remix this. So now we mix it up just a little bit more with the stir stick, just that final little mix, and you can see this is really good consistent yellow color. All right, so now what we want to make sure we do is we coat all of the surfaces that we're going to bond to. So we'll put a little layer, nice layer here on the wall. And don't be afraid to use this epoxy. This is a good thick epoxy that acts as a filler as well as a good adhesive. So make sure you get a good nice coat on there. Then we're also going to coat the pipe. And then our final step is to coat the fitting itself. So the key to your retrofit is this cone here called the conical draft. We want to make sure we fill that in entirely. And I'll show you what I mean. When we fill that cone in, it actually will act as a good filler if that is a big angle on that pipe. So if that comes in at a big angle, this fitting has 20 degrees of angle built into it. So it'll handle that really easily and fill in that gap.
Beautiful.
So that's what that looks like now. You can see it's got a really good thick layer in there. So next all we have to do is now put this on the wall and the pipe. So we're going to put this in. We're going to give it a little twist just to make sure we have all of those little nooks and crannies all filled in real well. And the next thing we'll do is we'll make sure we get the second half. And here's the other half. We have that one all prepped and ready to go, so we'll put that one in. Now the one thing to keep in mind, like I said earlier, we do have this as a really good filler, so we have an entire kit that you can use on this fitting. And there we go. And now all we have to do is just clean up the excess. So we'll clean up all of this. Make sure that we get really good coverage in the joints. And we just got to clean it all up. And you want to make sure that you have really good coverage in your seam here where these two come together. So we're going to clean it up a little bit just to get a lot of that excess off. And we'll have a little bit more come out of there when we actually put the clamp on. All right, so now the final step is just putting the worm gear clamp on. And you just want to get this snug. Don't use an impact driver on it and really crank it down. You'll get all of that epoxy that you just put in there. It'll squeeze it all out. So the clamp is there just to hold it in place, and you can see we've got a little epoxy still coming out of there. That's what we want to see. And now it's just good and snug. And so now our final step to clean up is making sure you have your acetone soaked rag and clean up all of that excess. And so why do we need to clean it up? A couple of really good reasons. Number one is if you do your testing and you have a leak, it's very easy to find it and fix it. And remember, these are all UL listed as well, so the resins that we use don't require any overcoat. Now, one of the steps we want to make sure that we do is we inspect this at the very bottom where it's very difficult to see standing on your head. So we'll take the mirror and we're going to look to make sure we have really good coverage all the way around that fitting. Not only at the bottom where it meets the wall, but on the pipe. Because most of our leaks are going to occur right down here between the 4 and the 6 o'clock position because we can't see it. So now you can see we've got nice, really good smooth joints all the way around. And I mentioned earlier it's really easy to find and fix a leak. The other really good point is that it shows your quality of workmanship. So if you have a regulator or a customer on site and they see this, that you took the time just to clean it up, makes it look good, and it's good quality workmanship. And that's it.